On today's show, the stage is almost set for the Cavs. Plus, who's the most important piece for a long postseason run for Cleveland? We'll discuss all that and so much more on this Friday edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name is Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like my Substack, The Inside Shot, Cleveland Magazine, 92.3 The Fan, and a number of other stops along the way. I want to say thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're watching the show on YouTube, do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. A proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. We are, a day away, 2 days away? How do we want to term this? A little over 48 hours away from the Cleveland Cavaliers beginning their playoff run. We don't know who they play yet. Obviously, it will be the winner of tonight's play-in game between the Atlanta Hawks and the Miami Heat. I will be back tomorrow with an episode discussing the outcome of tonight's game between those two teams. I don't know if it's going to be a full 30-minute episode, but I will have something on Saturday about what happens in that game, because I think that it's not important for whether or not the Cavs are going to advance to the second round, but I do think that there are pros and cons to facing each team. So I do want to talk through whoever wins that. And we'll do that on tomorrow's edition of Locked On Cavs. But today I want to spend a little bit more time talking about Darius Garland, because if you listened to yesterday's episode with ESPN's Brian Windhurst, and I would implore you to go back and listen to that one, because Windy, as always, had just absolutely tremendous stuff, and very thankful that he took some time earlier this week to jump on the show. But we talked a lot about Darius Garland and how important he is for the Cavs. And that is something that, as I sit here, I wonder if he's the most important piece of the puzzle for the Cavs this year. And I don't think that he is, but I do think that there's a lot of pressure on him to have a really good postseason, because this will obviously be the third straight year that he's been in the playoffs. And I am more than willing, and if you listen to this podcast, I think you know where I come out on Darius Garland, and I am obviously a really big fan of his game. And I am considering what happened to him last year with the fractured jaw, with some off-the-court stuff, just the fact that he was very clearly not himself, not only in the playoffs, but all throughout the regular season. I'm willing to give him a pass on that. But if you go back and look to the first playoff run, or I guess playoff 5 games that he played with the Cavs back in Donovan Mitchell's first year, so that would have been the spring of 2023 against the New York Knicks, it didn't go well. Last year didn't go well. That Orlando series at times was kind of tough to watch because he shot the ball so poorly. And can the Cavs get to the conference finals if Darius Garland doesn't play great? Yeah, they probably can, because they're that much more talented than anybody else on their side of the bracket. They're not upset proof if Darius Garland doesn't play great. But I don't think ultimately they can get to where they want to go to unless Darius Garland has a postseason that mirrors what made him an all-star this year. And I think a lot of that is shooting, because his shooting numbers have not been very good since the All-Star break, really since that hip injury just after the All-Star break against the New York Knicks, the second game after the break. And even in that game, he wasn't playing well before he got hurt. And yes, the last couple of games that he played in the regular season were really good. And I do think that you can look at that as, okay, this is hope that he's going to be back to being all-star caliber, all-NBA caliber guy, and he's not going to make an all-NBA team. I'd be very surprised if he does. He was on that trajectory prior to this injury, but I don't think he gets there because of that. Now, if he can get back to being that guy, I think that's a really big deal for the Cavs. And I do think that this is a big postseason for him. I think it is a really big postseason for Evan Mobley too. And we'll talk about that coming up in segment number 2. But I do think that for Darius to play as well as he has in some of the clutch moments this year, right? Like you think about even last last week's game against New York, or the game in New York earlier this year, the game against Milwaukee where he outdueled Damian Lillard. Those are the things that you look at and say, yeah, this guy's got the clutch factor. He's a nominee for clutch player of the year. Whether or not he gets it, I don't know. I would be surprised, but he's a nominee. He's one of 30 nominees. And typically you see that type of thing translate really well to the postseason. Like those are the moments that most simulate what the playoffs are. And I do think that is a good sign heading into the postseason that he had that type of year. The fact that I think he closed the season much stronger than what his final 6 weeks actually were. His last maybe 10 days or so were pretty good outside of that Sacramento Kings game at home. I do think those are good signs heading into the postseason. And the Cavs did have practice on Thursday, and there were some interesting things said about Darius Garland. Now, Darius did not speak with the media. I would anticipate that he does either on Friday or Saturday before the Cavs start their postseason run on Sunday. But one of the things that Kenny Atkinson talked about with Darius was sort of that he needs him to play older than he is. And it's not necessarily from a basketball standpoint that, oh, you've got to play like a 30-year-old, but more so as a maturity standpoint and from a leadership standpoint, because Darius is 25. He's still a young player. Like it's crazy that guys have been around so long in basketball and they are young players still. Like that is where Darius Garland is. He's still a young player, but he's also a veteran at this point in his career. And Kenny Atkinson said that the number one message for Darius basically is for him to not change, to be the guy that he's been all year. And if he was to ask something more of Darius than just those things, it'd be like speeding up his maturity level is what Kenny said, that he's 25. He needs to be 28 in terms of maturity. He needs to speed up that process. He needs to be basically the best leader that he can be, because the Cavs right now, whether or not we expected it to be this way prior to the season or not, they're in a championship window. They are. They can win the title this year. Then that window is not going to close. It should not close if they don't win it this year. But these years are really precious. You don't get these years back. And I do think that there's something to appreciating what a playoff run can do. And I also think it's a really big deal for Darius that this isn't the first time he's going through this. And this is not just a specific thing to Darius Garland, because it's obviously not Evan Mobley's first time, Donovan Mitchell's first time, Jared Allen's. Like these guys are playoff veterans at this point, even if they haven't had necessarily the level of playoff success that the Cavs would have hoped so far. But Darius having a good start to the postseason, I think would go a really, really long way towards the Cavs getting to where they want to be. And I do think that there is pressure on him because he has had some not great postseason moments before. I mean, he hit a three. I don't remember. I think it might have been game 7, or maybe it was game 5 at home. It was at home against Orlando last year. And he hit a 3 and he gave Donovan Mitchell a hug. And it was kind of like this has been really, really rough, but he finally did hit a big shot. And that moment was a good moment for him, but I think it kind of spoke to the fact that, this hasn't gone well. And the Cavs can afford that in the first round. They can afford that in the second round, but they can't do that against Boston. They can't do that in the finals. They need Darius Garland to be an all-star. And I think having that experience, being able to draw back from that, and the fact that, as we've referenced a number of times, this year has been really bad for Darius. It's not been good. Or last year had been really bad for Darius. It was not good. And then this bounce back year for him was awesome. He bounced back from a nightmare of a season last season to having what I think has been a really awesome season this year. Because of that, I think it gives me a little bit more confidence that Darius is going to bounce back from previous playoff shortcomings and have a really good postseason. So that's where I'm at on Darius Garland. As I said, the Cavs did practice on Thursday. So we spoke with Evan Mobley, who I want to talk about in a second. We spoke with Jared Allen and we spoke with Kenny Atkinson. Just a couple of other notes to come out of practice that I want to get to before I get into a bigger Evan Mobley thing. Donovan Mitchell, fully healthy. Kenny Atkinson said nobody was limited in practice on Thursday. I think Donovan could have played at the end of the regular season if he needed to. Seeing what the workout that he went through prior to the game last Sunday against the Pacers on the floor at Rocket Arena, like that just told me, okay, this guy's good. Like there's nothing to be concerned about here. I expect Donovan Mitchell when the Cavs take the floor on Sunday night. I expect Donovan Mitchell to look like Donovan Mitchell. That's what I would anticipate is going to happen. There's no concern there. He is as close to 100%, I think, as you can be at this point in an NBA season. I do think that the week off did him really well. I think the week off did the Cavs in general really well. The fact that they have no injuries to speak of, I do think is a really good sign. The injury report will come out tomorrow for Sunday's game. It'll come out tomorrow afternoon. And I think that it should be empty. I would be surprised if there are any injuries. If there are injuries, it means something happened between now and then, because as of the time I record this at 10:45 on Thursday night, my understanding is that the Cavs are fully healthy, and that is a great place to be going into the postseason. The other thing, the Cavs are going to scrimmage on Friday. Kenny Atkinson said that is the plan. That's important because having this week off is great for like getting rest and being able to kind of reset mentally and physically in some ways after a long, grueling 82 game season. But of course, there's always the rest versus rust debate, right? Like you don't want to find yourself coming out and getting off to a slow start in the playoffs because you took a week off and didn't do anything. So the Cavs are going to have a higher intensity practice on Friday. I think that's a good idea. I think that's probably the right time for it. And then, it'll be something on Saturday. I don't know if they're going to have a shoot around on Sunday or not. And then Sunday at 7:00 at Rocket Arena, they'll be playing either Miami or Atlanta. And one guy I expect to have a great night on Sunday and really a great playoff run is Evan Mobley. Going to tell you why next, right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in the marketing, development, design, and more. Experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives business flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. Finding the right talent, if you need help with the marketing campaign, they can help you right there. Finding the right talent, that's where they can help you. Upwork can connect you with a freelance expert who delivered incredible results on a similar project before. Plus, posting a job is free and simple, and within a day, you'll get multiple qualified candidates to choose from. So if that sounds like something you need, and very much could be something you need, visit upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That is upwork.com, upwork.com, to connect with top talent and grow your business today. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, you can find the show anywhere you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend to subscribe to Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're here. Make sure a friend is here as well. Make sure you're also subscribed to the Locked On Cavs daily newsletter for expert analysis, insider insights, and all the playoff action delivered straight to your inbox for free every single weekday. Plus, as a subscriber, you'll be entered to win either a $2,500 Best Buy gift card, a $300 Game Time gift card, and a $200 Fanatics gift card. It is free to enter. Simply subscribe between right now, and April 30th to be automatically entered to win. Head on over to lockedondaily.com. That is lockedondaily.com to take care of that. I think Evan Mobley is going to have a really big postseason, and I felt that way for a little while, but I think it was affirmed a little bit to me at practice on Thursday. So Mobley was one of the two players on the Cavs to speak with the media, and I do think a big change in Evan this year off the floor, at least in his dealing with the media, has been confidence. Like, I think that, and he's never going to be, the most media savvy guy. Like, he's not going to be Donovan Mitchell, who is always very outgoing when speaking with the media, and he knows how to command a room. And I don't know that Evan is ever going to have that same presence. But I think he's come a long way from when he was a younger player to, and he's still a very young player, obviously. But I think he has come a long way in terms of his confidence when he entered the league to where he is now. And I think that this was, and maybe I'm reading too much into this. I don't think I am, though. But I think the media availability that he had on Thursday was the most outwardly confident I've seen Evan in any dealing off the basketball floor. And I think that he's always been a relatively confident player on the floor. I think that confidence has grown from last year to now. And I think it has grown from the start of this season to now. And I do think that maybe having some playoff success on an individual level last year did that for him, because he very clearly did do that in that series against the Boston Celtics. But I left Cleveland Clinic Courts on Thursday thinking, you know what? I think Evan Mobley is going to have a great, not a good, but a great playoff run for the Cavs. Like, I really do believe that if this season wasn't his coming out party, and listen, he's going to be an all NBA player. I do think he will win Defensive Player of the Year. I'm not like 100% sure of that, but I do think he will win Defensive Player of the Year. But I think he's going to probably be second team all NBA. I think most people, if you listen to podcasts from people who have votes or read their columns or whatever, like most people that have revealed who they voted for, even if they didn't vote Evan for Defensive Player of the Year, have him second team all NBA, which is something that I do think that he deserves. Like, I think that his play has earned that. And one of the things that he talked about on Thursday is knowing what's coming in the postseason. And obviously they don't know the opponent yet, but it wasn't about, who they could play in the first round, because obviously they don't know what's coming as far as that goes. But it was more so about knowing what the postseason like, and having been through that a couple of times already, where this will be Evan's third playoffs. He's never played in a game in his career where winning hasn't been important. Now, if like you want to play semantics and say, well, down the end of this season, winning didn't matter. Okay, fine. But like from his rookie year on, the Cavs have always been competitive. They've always been really, really good. So I do think that matters. But he basically said, what's coming. That's the biggest factor. I would say we all know what's coming, and we have to put ourselves through right now to be prepared for the playoffs. And we're doing that right now. And that was the way that he delivered that really stuck out to me, because he spoke like somebody who knows what is about to happen in the playoffs. He knows what he's about to do in the postseason. I think that his game has transformed so much from the start of this season to now, from last season to now, from what he was when he was drafted to now. He is on the cusp, I think, of superstardom. Whether or not he's ever actually considered a superstar, I don't know, because I think a lot of that has to do with like off the floor aura. Like, I think Anthony Edwards gets considered to be a player better than Donovan Mitchell because Anthony is one of the most engaging, fun people to talk to, right? Like, if you watch his media availabilities in Minnesota, it's like the best thing ever. But I would rather have Donovan Mitchell playing basketball for my team. And I think that can sort of affect how we view it. And I just don't think Evan's ever going to have that as a personality, but I think he is on the cusp of basketball player superstardom. And I think that this postseason run is something that can really help get him there. And I came away from Thursday thinking, okay, this guy, like, not that he didn't get it before, but almost that a brighter light bulb went off in his mind, and that this is going to be a coming out party of sorts for him. And I think that is the biggest thing that I look at and say, I think every Cavs fan should be really, really, really excited about what is to come for Evan Mobley, because I think he's going to have an awesome postseason. I do want to also touch on tonight's game. I've got a couple of mailbag questions I want to talk about coming up in segment number 3. So I want to just touch a little bit on tonight's game, who I think the Cavs should be rooting for. And I think that answer is Atlanta. I think the better draw for the Cavs in the first round is the Atlanta Hawks. Not because I think Miami is capable of beating them. They're not. You should not be scared of Miami. They went 37-45. They're not a good basketball team. Atlanta went 40-42. They're also not a good basketball team. But I do think stylistically, the Cavs would rather play Atlanta. And I think it was a big win for the Cavs that Orlando won the 7-8 game and they play Boston because of how physical Orlando is. And now Boston will have to deal with that. And of course, Boston will beat the Magic, but it's going to take a little bit more than I think it will take either one of those teams to beat the Hawks or the Heat. But I do think a big thing for the Cavs this postseason is going to be the 3-point shooting. And we talked about it with Wendy a little bit yesterday, that the Cavs shot the ball so well for the first few months of the season and then fell off the last 6 weeks. And I do think part of that's going to come back just because of the rest. But I also look at what Atlanta doesn't do well, and it's defend the three-point arc. They're not a very good three-point defending team. They give up a lot of corner threes. Opponents are shooting over 40% on corner threes against them this year. The Cavs are obviously still one of the best shooting teams in basketball. And I think that this series could serve a bit as a get right offensive series for them. Now, obviously, I have no idea if they're going to beat Miami tonight, but I do think that the best path forward for the Cavs should be the path of least resistance, right? And I think that is Atlanta and not Miami. Again, not because Miami is an awesome team. They're not. If they were an awesome team, they'd be in the actual playoffs, not the 10 seed in the Eastern Conference. But I do think that having to deal with Miami's zone and the toughness that I think the Heat have an edge over Atlanta in could just be something that's more of an irritant in an opponent than what Atlanta does. And that path would be then Atlanta, the winner of Milwaukee and Indiana, which I think would be Indy, who also not an overly physical team. The Pacers play a unique style, but I wouldn't necessarily sit here and say, yeah, the Pacers, they really beat you up, right? No, they're going to try and outrun you. And I think ultimately, because and maybe I get ahead of myself, I don't think I do. I think it's more of a when do the conference finals start against the Boston Celtics rather than if the Cavs make it to the conference finals. And I think a big thing as far as what's going to decide who wins the Eastern Conference is going to be which of those two teams is healthier when the conference finals arrive. And if you're the Cavs, you would much rather play Atlanta and then Indy or Milwaukee rather than Orlando and then Detroit or New York. And I think the Cavs have an advantage there. And I think if Atlanta wins the final play-in game tonight to advance to Cleveland on Sunday, I think that's another boost for the Cavs. Got a couple of mailbag questions that I want to answer, including one about Zydrunas Ilgauskas from a friend of the podcast. We'll do that next, right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by Monarch Money. You ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it can be easy to lose track, but that's where Monarch Money comes in because they'll be your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building your wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, because listen, we can all fill our phones with apps and it can be hard just to keep track of what is where, what app is where do I find it even on my home screen. You can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan those long-term goals that I know you have right in one spot. Plus, managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without all the stress. If that sounds good to you, and it should sound good to you, you can then take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA, that is LOCKEDON NBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. Today's show is also brought to you by Epicor. Every team knows the value of hard work, of taking pride in what you build and practicing every detail to get the best results. But no one player, no matter how amazing, can do it all alone. Working together makes getting the win easier. And at Epicor, the All-Stars are the hardworking manufacturers and distributors who create and deliver the things we all need, from aerospace to electrical to medical devices. Epicor ERP solutions are created by industry experts to help make every day easier. Seeing your whole supply chain is easier. Managing logistics is easier. Responding to price changes is easier. From small businesses with big dreams to growing enterprises with global visions, they'll equip you with the right tools to move forward, think ahead, and lead the way. Because as the clock ticks down, you need to make the most of every hardworking minute. Easier doesn't cut corners. Easier takes the lead. Discover your success at easierwithepicor.com. That is easierwithepicor.com. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, you can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. We are on YouTube. If if you're watching right now, hit that thumbs up button, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. I got a really interesting question on Twitter earlier today, and this comes from the Cleveland. And this person asked, do you think the Cavs will finally be able to punch first in the playoffs like the LeBron Cavs teams were able to? One thing that this person's been worried about is, being strong early in big games, because we have seen at times, the Boston games in particular, even the two that the Cavs won, the Celtics were able to be the team that punched first. And I do think that this is, one, a good question, and I appreciate it. But two, I think it's something that the Cavs should be prepared for. And this is something I'm going to be most interested in, maybe not on Sunday because of the whole rest versus rust thing. So Sunday kind of might be excluded from this in a weird way. But can the Cavs consistently land the first punch when they play in playoff games? And I do think it's time to stop calling this a young playoff team or an unproven playoff team. Like, have they won the title? No, but this is also their third run at the playoffs together. It's not as if this group hasn't been together. The core four is in their third playoffs together. Not every single player on this team has been around for all three playoff runs, but most of them, it's the second time going through the playoffs with this group. And I do think that those things matter as you get to the postseason, the fact that they've got chemistry, camaraderie, all that stuff, but that they've also been there before. The thing that I talked about last segment with Evan, knowing what to expect, that matters. And it's not just Evan that knows what to expect. Donovan Mitchell's been in the playoffs every year of his career. And I don't think anyone is questioning what Donovan has accomplished individually in the postseason in his career, because his track record is pretty impeccable as an individual performer. Now, he's not been able to get over the hump from a team standpoint. I do think that there's pressure on him in that sense. I don't think that shows up in the first round. I think that probably shows up a little bit later, and that's why we haven't necessarily spoken about his role in all of this so far. But that is something, he's been there. He's done that. This is the third time Darius Garland will be entering the playoffs. It's the third time Evan Mobley will. It's the fourth time Jarrett Allen will. DeAndre Hunter's been there. Max Strus has been there. Isaac Okoro's playing in his third playoffs. Like, all of the key players for the Cavs, if you go up and down the roster, the guys that are in the rotation, other than Ty Jerome, right, have contributed to postseasons, have contributed to playoff runs. They've been there before. That's the stuff that I do think matters. And the Cavs have that. And I do think that being the more aggressive, assertive team early on is something they should be capable of, maybe in a way that they haven't been capable of in the past. And I think that could be one area where we see them be able to draw on some postseason experience, right? Because they do have that postseason experience. They've not necessarily accomplished everything that they've wanted to accomplish, but they've played in the playoffs in Boston in the second round. They've won a series together. Again, it's not as if we should be confusing their postseason experience with the postseason experience of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, guys that have been to the conference finals over and over and over again. But it's not as if they're newbies either. It's not as if they're the Detroit Pistons of this year, where the Pistons are a great story and it's their first time in the playoffs and they don't know what to expect. This group should know what to expect, and they should be able to, more often than not, land the first punch, especially when you're talking about the first two rounds of the playoffs. And that'll be something that I'm very, very interested to see if that can work, to see if that's something that the Cavs can do this year. One other question, which does not pertain to this team, but it comes from a friend, so we're going to include it. That friend would be Ken Carman. Some of you might know him as the morning show host on 92.3 The Fan. Some of you might know him from the Cleveland Browns radio network. Some of you might just know him from Twitter as Ken in the Burrow, as he signed his question. Said, is Z an underrated enforcer in NBA history? Look at him when LeBron was drafted by the Cavs. So Zydrunas Ilgauskas, I think, is one of the more, maybe the most underrated player in Cavs history. And he's got his number retired, and we could have a debate as to whether or not he deserved to have his number retired. And that's fine. I don't think that's what this should be about. But Z was one of the most consistent guys. And the fact that he was able to get over the foot injury that he had early in his career, I don't know that I would ever call him an enforcer per se. I don't know that that's who Zydrunas Ilgauskas was, but I think he's underrated as a teammate of LeBron. He made a couple of all-star teams, only one of which was with LeBron in Cleveland. One of them came the year before LeBron was in Cleveland, but he was super consistent. And that's the thing that I'm always going to remember about Z. And I also think back to the first finals the Cavs went to. So back in, this would have been the spring of 2007, how happy LeBron was for Z, because at that point, he was 31 years old. He had been in the NBA for a long time. He had missed basically 3 of his first 4 seasons in the league because of injuries. And he was a guy that you didn't know was going to have a legitimate career. And for him to blossom into what he was able to blossom into, I do think is a really cool story. And it's unfortunate that we don't necessarily spend as much time talking about it as maybe it deserves to get. Like, Z's an all-time awesome Cav. He's never going to be confused with a basketball Hall of Famer, but I think that he's just everyone. I think he's somebody in Cleveland that if you're a Cavs fan, everybody should love. Thank you for making Locked on Cavs your first listen today and every day. Again, if you missed yesterday's show, ESPN's Brian Windhurst stopped by. Great conversation with him. Very much appreciate the fact that he took the time to chat Cavs basketball with me and right here on Locked on Cavs. So go check that out. If you missed it, it should be in your podcast feed, or just search that on YouTube. It will pop up. Thank you for making this your first listen today and every day. I'll be back tomorrow. Not exactly sure what that episode's going to look like, but I will be back tomorrow talking about the Cavs taking on whoever they're going to play in the first round, because this time tomorrow we will know who the Cavs are playing in the first round. So keep it locked right here with Locked on Cavs, wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else, YouTube as well. If you're watching the show, as we get out of here, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss tomorrow's episode and all the episodes of Locked on Cavs.